And remember what got you. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. You put your effort, concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be. I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show.
This is the second coming. This is a call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
Right now, it's not about talent. It's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest. Who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
I have a question, though. Those two foul shots at the end of the game, did you miss them? Did you miss them? Not exactly a silly question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
Well, it's about as good as it can be on a Saturday morning on such circumstances. Of course, the big story out of Connecticut, the shooting of just way too many people, way too many children, has saddened us all. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley. And Dave, we will talk about what happened yesterday. We'll try and give people a little bit of a release from reality, though, by talking about these high school games, which many seasons tipped off around the state of New Hampshire last night. But, we come on the air this morning, and both of us parents of young children in that age range that were killed senselessly yesterday. And it's such a terrible, terrible story. And I know, talking to you yesterday, like me, your heart sunk when you heard the news, and the first thing you thought of, I'm sure, was your daughter.
Yeah, I was listening even on the way in this morning to CNN, and you can kind of only listen you can only kind of take it in so much before it just affects you. It's inconceivable. I have a little girl who goes to school every day with Hello Kitty sneakers, and then she has a backpack that glows. It's a princess backpack, and it glows, so when she walks down the hallway in her school, this little, 45-pound peanut, and she's got like little lights glowing, and she's in kindergarten. She's the age of those children who were sitting there probably listening to a story about a bear that buys shoes, and then this happens. Just real quick, when I picked her up yesterday, one of her teachers said, and they didn't tell them, and I haven't told her, and I don't plan to, because how do you explain that? But the teacher said that she made a comment to me that stuck with me. She said, those kids, and she's a kindergarten teacher, she said they wouldn't even know to run. Mm-hmm. Like they would just like, what is this? They're waiting for Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing just absolutely, I'm sure everyone's gotten emotional over it. It physically gave me a stomach ache yesterday, and it still does. It's not even close to being over as far as dealing with it. And those kids had their innocence ripped away, even the survivors, and it's awful. It's
just a shame, and it's an awful story, and you just can't put it into words. We will talk about it a little bit throughout the course of the show. We've got a couple of great coaches lined up to talk to us. We know Jay McKenna, the head coach of the Winnicott Warriors basketball team, is a teacher in the school. We'll talk to him and find out how he dealt with it with his team. He's got young kids. He's going to join us about half hour from now, 20 minutes or so, 7:35 the time for Jay McKenna. His team opened up their season in Division I last night. Next hour, Matt Alosa from Pembroke, another great coach, will join us, the coach of the favorites in Division II, and we'll get his take on the whole situation and just try and give it to you from that perspective. I mean, these are guys that are dealing with kids on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, and just love to get their take on it. And we'll do the best we can covering it in this forum that is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. But we do also, I can say this, Dave, when I was at the game and I went to the Manchester Central Alvern game last night in Hudson, as I was walking in, I remember walking behind what I think was an adult daughter and her elderly mother, and I wasn't trying to listen in on what they were talking about. I was right behind them, and they were talking about this thing that happened down in Newtown, Connecticut, and the buzz throughout the stands was obviously there. I'm sure they did a moment of silence at the game that you were at when it at Pinkerton. They did it at Alvern, and I know they did it across the state of New Hampshire, which was good. I'm glad that they did that. But while those games were going on for those 32 minutes of basketball, you could kind of step away from it for a little while. And I actually forgot about it for a little while until I get back in the car and tuned into this radio station and heard what was going on. But it was a little bit of a remedy, I guess, for the situation. Maybe just a distraction is probably the best word to say.
Yeah, I taped the news. I headed over to the game around 6:15. I taped the news, and I didn't want to watch it with my daughter up, so I didn't watch it until about midnight last night after I written the article for the game. I was at the like you said, the Pinkerton Winnicott game. But yeah, you can only take so much of it, and it's you want to do anything you can, but you can't do anything, and it's the more you read, the worse it gets, and it's even just the pictures of those kids, how scared they were. It crushes you like nothing else. But it is different when it's not adults. I mean, human life is human life. I'm not making one more important than the other. But when it's kids, it's just
unimaginable, and it's too bad that the president, I think, said it very, very eloquently. He said this is happening too much. When he gets the news about this and he has to think about these type of things that he deals with, it kind of makes other stuff, this fiscal cliff and the bickering over partisan politics is just stupid when it comes to stuff like this. And it's unfortunate that these things pop up from time to time. And, I think it's just going to teach you personally. I know it's taught me to love your kids and respect your kids and respect other kids. I mean, I dropped my kids off at school yesterday, and I have a 5-year-old and almost a 3-year-old, and I would never even dream of something like that.
No, you expect they'll be there when you get them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly, and
so for those parents there are another 20 parents that didn't happen.
Yeah, and that's a very, very sad thing. So let's try and lighten the mood a little bit, Dave. It was opening night in both Division I and Division II basketball. The Division III and Division IV seasons got underway a week ago. But we got a full scoreboard around the state of New Hampshire, and our Friday night scoreboard brought to you by the New Hampshire Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement and the Buyers Beware program, reminding all adults it's against the law to provide alcohol to minors. Here's Dave Haley with the scoreboard.
So starting in Division I, and this score kind of surprised me a little bit. Trinity with an 86-41 win on the road at Concord. A lot of high hopes for the new coach in Concord. 45-point loss on opening night, so we'll get more into that as we get going. Dover with a nice win at home over Exeter. They jumped out big early and held on to beat Exeter 63-53 in that game. Another score of note would be Nashua South, who's a team who I am very high on. A lot of people are high on around the state. Nashua South with a close 56-50 win over Keene on opening night in Nashua. Also in Division I, Manchester Memorial with a good win over Londonderry, 66-58. Manchester Central, the game you were at with John Kesting, we'll get into this later, but Manchester Central came back in a big way. I can't believe that final score after what you were telling me early on, but Manchester Central with a 58-42 win over Alvern. The defending champs Merrimack with a 57-48 win over Salem. That's a good win. And BG sends Bedford to a loss in their first Division I game. Final score in that one's 89-74, and two more Division I scores. Spalding with a 63-43 win over Timberlane. Timberlane's probably going to be one of the two worst teams in that division, but a good win there for Spalding. And the game I was at last night, when it kind of came from behind in the fourth quarter with all that pressure to wear down Pinkerton, get a very nice win for Jay McKenna's team, 66-58. So I'll jump around a little bit real quick. Some of the other divisions, as I kind of see them here. Campbell in Division III with a really nice win over Prospect Mountain. Prospect Mountain was preseason number 2. Campbell wins that game 65-57. Co-Brown with a nice win over St. Thomas to open the season 64-42. Conant, who may be one of the top 3 teams in Division II this season if they were there. Conant 79-43 over Kearsarge in that game. Milford 60-51 over Conval. Nice win for Dan Murray on opening night. Goffstown with a very good win. 2 baskets in the last 17 seconds back and forth, but Goffstown gets a nice win, 62-60 over Wyndham. That's a good Wyndham team they beat last night there. So a good win there. Going through Somersworth, 58-28 over Interlake. Somersworth is a house on fire. I'm going to go there next Friday night. I'm going to cover Somersworth against Campbell. And
that should be a good one.
Yeah, 2 undefeated teams. And John Langlos, the coach for Campbell, is a former coach at Somersworth. So all sorts of subplots. Merrimack Valley with a closer than expected win over Kennet at home, 62-59. Plymouth, one of my little sleeper teams, 55-26 over Kingswood.
When was the last time Plymouth had a good basketball
I know,
team?
but I'm telling you, they're on the radar again, I think. Well, I'm not saying Kingswood's that great, but 55-26 is 55-26. Nice game in the Seacoast last night. Portsmouth 59, Oyster River 54.
Mulvey says we're not good at all this year.
No, and a lot of people have Oyster River real high. I was not buying it. I think, and the thing about Portsmouth, they're going to get better as they go along. So if they're winning games now, they're going to keep going. Big game up north last night. Littleton with a 58-53 over Lisbon. Littleton's undefeated Trevor Howard's team with a good win over Sam Natty's team up there. And wrapping up the scoreboard, actually 2 more games, 2 big games in Division II to wrap up the scoreboard. Hollis Brookline 53, Sauhegan 43.
I was shocked at that. I saw you write in your Division II preview that Hollis Brookline was
At number 4.
an upper echelon team, and I scoffed at that, I got to admit. And I don't know a whole lot
Would you
about
like to say
Hollis
something
Brookline.
to me here on the air while people listen?
Congratulations,
Thank
good
you.
job.
Nice one.
And I'm surprised that Sauhegan lost that game.
At home. We'll get into this. And the last score, this was a score. Pembroke 66, Pelham, who's a good team, 47, and Patrick Welch with 21 points in the first half last night ended up with 33 points. And with that score, I'm sure Matt Alosa took him out late. He probably could have gone for 40. We'll talk about him too, especially with Coach Alosa. But Matt made a point on the phone with me saying this kid is taking the next step.
Yeah, and he's still a junior.
He's going to break some state. I mean, I don't know if he's going to break the state scoring record, but he's going to break some all-time records.
Well, Alosa had 2,500 something points.
Yeah.
I think that's the number at Pembroke, and he's the all-time leading scorer at Pembroke Academy.
At Pembroke, yeah.
I believe that as of last year, the end of his sophomore year, Welch I'm talking about, was like on pace with Alosa, or at least in that neighborhood. So he could end up breaking that record. We'll talk to him about that when we get Coach Alosa on the phone a little bit more than an hour from now in the 8 o'clock hour. We got to take a break. We got Jay McKenna from Winnicott coming up about 15 minutes from now. We'll talk to him about his team's exciting win over Pinkerton, and we'll get his take, unfortunately, on what it's like to be a teacher in one of these schools and dealing with these kids and having something like that happen. I wonder if they addressed it or not in the locker room before the game. I know Doc Wheeler spent a lot of time in that post-game locker room at Alvern last night. John Kesty and I, we were doing the video highlights for nhsportspage.com, and we were out there waiting a long time for that Central team. And they were a team that won by 16 points, and they were in the locker room for a long time. So I don't know if they were talking about that or whatever. I didn't ask Doc after the game. But I wonder if these coaches address this with their teams going in.
Yeah.
You know, because some of these kids probably have kids the age that are the kids that got killed down in Connecticut yesterday. And terrible situation. We'll talk about it throughout the course of the show, get the coach's insight on what happened, and who knows, maybe we can even open up the phone lines, let you vent a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy with phone calls because I know we'll get inundated, but if you feel the need and you have something, you know, that you need to say and you want to say, perhaps we'll open it up a little bit later on in the hour. We'll come back. I want to talk about the game that you were at. Actually, we'll talk about the game that I was at because we're going to talk with Jay McKenna in a few minutes. We'll talk about that Central Alvern game. And don't just look at the final score because this game was not like that final score tells you it would be. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Pete Terry along with Dave Haley, nhsportspage.com, right here at WGIR, AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Back here on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley. You can get it each and every Saturday morning live on the radio. As a matter of fact, 2 radio stations, WGIR AM 610 in and around Manchester. Also got a Seacoast signal for you. It is 96.7 The Wave. Catch us live throughout the world, throughout the universe on iHeartRadio.
The universe?
Yes, the universe. There's people on Mars listening to this show.
The universe.
Big Central fans. You know those the Green Martians? Well, they're big fans of the Little Green.
Oh no,
Trust
I knew
me,
you were going there.
They're all over it.
Cut his mic.
On the planet Mars. Speaking of the Little Green, impressive win last night
wanna hear
on the
about
road.
this. Yeah, I wanna hear.
58-42 was the final, but it wasn't a blowout. You know, I wrote on the website, nhsportspage.com, about if you just look at that final score, you don't really know the whole story of the game. Alvin really controlled the game. I talked to Seth Guerin after the game, and I said, you know what, Coach? I said, you could have won that game, and maybe you should have won that game. And he said, well, I don't know if we should have won that game, but we definitely could have.
Yeah.
Alvin led just about the whole way. It wasn't until about 3 minutes left to go in the game that Central took the lead. They were on a 19-0 run to finish that game, basically. Alvin scored 4 points in the fourth quarter, 12 points in the second half. Central outscored him 25-4 in the fourth. And take this into account. Troy Pelletier had 4 points basically the entire game. And then he ended up with 10 points. He hit some free throws in the end. So they did it with Troy Pelletier not having a good game offensively. Dawson Dixon was great. Had 4 3-pointers in the first half, including, I think, the biggest one, which was at the buzzer. It was a 10-point game. Alec Yosh, one of your guys.
My guy. I love that guy.
Who didn't play well last night, by the way. Hit a 3 in the corner with about 5 seconds left in the half, and it gave Alvin a 10-point lead, their biggest lead of the first half.
Yeah.
And then Central rushed the ball up the court, got it into Dixon's hands, and Dixon drains a 3 from about 35 feet, whatever it was, straight away. And that really gave Central some momentum going into the halftime. They were down by 7. They were still down by 5, I think it was, at the end of the third quarter. And then they made that run. And a kid that came out of nowhere, Brett Hansen.
I don't know if he did come out of nowhere, though. I'm telling you.
He came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He came out of nowhere as far as varsity experience,
Right.
because he was a JV player last year and was a good player for a good Central JV team. But this kid is like 6'0". He's about 100-nothing pounds.
Is he Rudy?
He's not Rudy. He's like, Rudy was like bigger than this kid. Here's a funny story, and John Kesty can attest to this. After the game, we're sitting outside the Central locker room. We're waiting to talk to him, and I said, I want to talk to Hansen, I want to talk to Dixon, and I want Pelletier here. So Hansen comes out, and he's basically shirtless. And so
That's how they roll at Central.
we go onto the floor, and then we lose Hansen. And I said to Dawson Dixon, I said, where did Hansen go? He goes, oh, he went back in and get a shirt. He didn't want to like come out here and be on film with no shirt on. And I'm like, I wanted the kid with no shirt on because the kid is so small and scrawny that I couldn't believe he scored 20 points in the game. And a lot of them were like in the paint stuff. And Alvin's got a big team. I mean, they've got Livingston, who's 6'5", Tyler Livingston. Tyler Brown, who is tall and long, 6'4". Kevin Pierre, who's 6'4".
Good athlete.
They got a bunch of guys who got some length to them. And this kid, Brett Hansen, knifed and weaved his way into the lane, around these guys, over these guys. I mean, he had an array of shots, and he's a lefty. I think he took some people by surprise, but he really came to play last night, and he showed me something.
Oh, no, I wrote about it in my preview. I spoke to Doc, and he said these two. He said Hansen's always tagging along with Dawson Dixon, and they go anywhere they possibly can. They work. You know, I'm really happy for Dawson Dixon because he looked like he kind of got he was the odd man out at Trinity as a freshman. Dad's a real nice guy as a coach as well, and he's worked his butt off to get to where that kid is not a natural athlete. I mean, he's got ability, but he works really, really hard.
He's tough.
He's a tough kid, and Hansen, that's what Doc said. He laughed. He goes, it's like frickin' frack. They're all over the place. Like, if you got a gym that's open, they'll come and play with you anytime. And you saw on opening night around the state, and we'll get into it more. We got a 2-hour show. But the kids that you heard from Noah LaRoche and Integrity Hoops, or Brett Sellingham at BST, or Will Flowers, the kids who worked their butts off, Timmy Prestons and Brett Hansons and Dawson Dixons, and these kids played real well last night, and it just goes to show you state championships can be won in the summer. It's not just a cliche. I mean, that's where you win it is there in July when you're working and everybody else is at the beach. I
thought one of the highlights of the game, and you can see it on the video highlights if you go to nhsportspage.com. They're up there right now. Awesome fast break jam by Tyler Livingston, 2-hand jam.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. Alvern had a great crowd. This place, the gym was pretty full.
Yeah. It's a funky gym. You got to go up the stairs, upstairs to get there.
Yeah. I once played there in a CYO game back in the day, so we're talking 80s that I played there, the Stekovich gym. And Tyler Livingston's a good player. Like I said, they got some size. They got a couple of good guards. Dan Kingsley came out, the starting point guard senior, and had 8 points in the first half, but got into foul trouble. And then he had to sit the entire third quarter. They put him out there in the fourth quarter, and he was out there for 2 seconds, so they sat him because of the foul trouble. They put him out there for the fourth quarter. First time he gets the ball, he drives the lane, offensive foul. He's out of the game with his fourth foul. He ended up fouling out. And they brought this other kid off the bench in the second quarter, Richie Eaton, who scored some points. He had 8 points in the game. But nobody else really stood out. I think Tyler Brown's a very good player. He's a junior.
Good shooter.
He is a good shooter. He's got some skills, can ball handle, and he's big. He's about 6'4". He seems to have grown a little bit.
He's a good athlete.
I like him. Livingston's obviously a very good player. I think they need to get him more involved. I thought he was trying to get involved by bringing the ball up the court, and he's not a ball handler. He's 6'5". Maybe at the next level he'll be a wing player.
And Central's not that big, so
Central's not big at all.
He's got to know. Especially Isaiah Joseph didn't play because he's still waiting to hear back from the NHIAA in regards to his eligibility. You got to know. You got to go. I'm sure Seth told him, but you got to go down. You got to find the weakness on the defense, and you got to go at it. You can't. You're not going to handle the. And Central. Their teams are going to have a lot of trouble bringing the ball up the floor against those guards, especially they didn't have Mike Pletsis last night.
Full court pressure by Central caused big problems. I think Alvern had 3 or 4 5-second violations just trying to get the ball in bounds off a made basket by Central. Central, I haven't really seen them play a lot of full court pressure over the years, but they did that very, very well last night. They've got a pretty deep team. You mentioned Pletsis not playing. He hurt his hand or finger or something like that, but he's not going to be out that long. That's a pretty good basketball team, but Alvern really controlled that game throughout, and they got blown out in the fourth quarter, 25-4. They scored 12 points in the second half. That was the game right there. Central's a good basketball team. Can't wait to see them play Trinity in the Queen City Invitational Basketball Tournament. I think that's the 6 o'clock game the day after Christmas.
What about Trinity last night? Do we have time to,
Trinity destroyed them. We don't have time to talk about a 45-point victory.
I get the phone calls from great guy Richard, who Dave Keefe has called me with all their stats, and so I don't know the score, and I'm literally in a gym someplace. I was at Winnacunnet, and I see he calls. I don't pick up obviously because he leaves the message and he breaks down every kid on. And when he ever said, Trinity, 86, Concord, 41, I had to listen to it again. I'm like, 41? This was on the road.
I'm not surprised. I mean, Trinity's they're just very, very deep. They're very, very deep.
And the scoring was, we'll go through it later, the scoring was, everyone was 12-13.
It's probably balanced
Patrick
scoring.
Keith, Carmen James Truesdale, 17 from Ryan Otis, Merrimack Valley transfers playing point guard for him. Brad Rhodes had a nice game, all of them. Between 17 and 13, all of those guys, they're going to be real tough.
And that's Trinity's MO. It's not Jordan Laguerre scoring 30 and the rest of the team, doing what they can. This is a very, very balanced team.
Give Dave credit for that, yeah.
All right, we'll take a timeout, come back. We'll get Jay McKenna from Winnacunnet coach, his team. Big victory last night at home. Great atmosphere in Hampton against Pinkerton. Pinkerton is a very, very tall team. They're huge. Everybody on the roster is 6'2" or better, right?
Yeah, Luke Rosaninski is their freshman. He's 6'7", and he's Peter's son, the head coach's son. They're all huge.
I got a good story about that when we come back from the break. Jay McKenna from Winnacunnet is our guest on the other side of the break. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Pig Terrier, Dave Haley, back here on the NHSportspage.com and the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. It is a Saturday morning, a very somber Saturday morning, as a matter of fact, because of what happened yesterday in Connecticut. Joining us on the phone line from the Seacoast in 96.7 The Wave Country is the head coach of the Winnacunnet Warriors, Jay McKenna. Coach McKenna, good morning and congratulations on an impressive victory, 66-58 over Pinkerton last night.
Good morning, guys. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So, Coach, before we get into the game and the start of basketball season, I want to ask you about the situation that happened down in Connecticut. And, you know, you teach in a school. You've got young kids. You can hear them in the background. What goes through your mind when something like that happens? And secondly, do you talk to that about the situation with your team?
First and foremost, you know, as a parent, I've got two young daughters, ages 9 and 6. I teach in an elementary school. So, I mean, just the horror of it. I mean, absolutely horrible tragedy, and your hope as a parent, as a teacher, that elementary school is going to be one of the safest places in the world for those kids. And, you know, obviously, things went horribly wrong, and, you know, lives are just absolutely affected and destroyed forever. So, you know, absolutely terrifying. We did talk to our guys about it before, and, you know, just it puts things in perspective. You know, we're playing a game, we're trying to have fun, and you know, we also talked to the idea of, you know, you don't know. You have no idea what can happen tomorrow. So, you know, every day should be a day that you live to the fullest. And we talked a little bit about that, but you could see that the kids were a little, yeah, they had things on their mind, you know, going, you know, into the game last night. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it.
So when you were at school yesterday and the news broke out that happened, I'm sure, you know, there was a buzz going through the school amongst the teachers and the administrators at the school. Did they kind of get you guys together for an impromptu meeting? Do you have situations like that happen? Do you guys kind of do drills? You hear a lot about these drills that you guys have to practice. I mean, you're obviously not, you know, getting into big detail or anything like that when you do these drills, but I wonder if that type of stuff happens.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like where I am in Hampton and Marston School, we're very well prepared. I mean, we have a safety committee that meets monthly that we discuss these things, and last week we actually had a lockdown drill. You know, in the event of something like this happening, what would we do? You know, and the kids are pretty well versed as to what we would do. We did not, there was some talk at the end of the day. We actually didn't find out until later in the day what had taken place. And I know that, you know, we've already been told first thing Monday morning we'll have a meeting before the kids get in to talk about what happened and how we can address it with the kids, because obviously the kids will come in with questions as well, and how can we best answer those questions in an appropriate manner. So, yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's like I said, it's a horrible tragedy, and you try to do as much as you can to prepare for it and just hope that it never takes place.
Well, we appreciate you kind of talking with us about that. We'll transition to a little bit basketball. Dave was at the game last night, and he saw a pretty good one, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. Jay, last night we were talking, you and I were talking after the game about you're a team that's going to live on runs this season, and I mean, it was 8-0 before, you know, right out of the bat. Richie Ruffin had 8 straight points. And then you went with a different unit. They brought the pressure, but Pinkerton sort of kind of, you know, was able to kind of gauge the speed of the game. And just want to get your thoughts on how it went by going in with the different groups. It obviously worked for you. I saw Pinkerton kids calling for subs at the end of the game. They were obviously tired. But how do you feel like it went? There's a big, you know, you've had 2 years after going to the championship that have been down a bit as you bring some young kids into the system. You told me after the game, you said, this is a huge win for us. I just want to hear, you know, your thoughts on what happened last night.
Yeah, I mean, they're a huge team. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah.
And I think that really rattled us at first, you know, after we went through that, you know, the initial, you know, 8-0 push there, and as we settle into things. I think that affected us. But, you know, as far as, you know, eventually we kind of figured it out, and we just stayed on the kids as far as just keep pushing the pace and keep getting up and down the floor and putting as much pressure on them as you can. And we've seen it in the preseason in our scrimmages. We've seen teams crack as far as just kind of running out of gas. And fortunately, we were able to push it enough that in that fourth quarter, you know, like you said, they were calling for subs. And, you know, those driving lanes that weren't there at the beginning of the game due to their length, they were in the fourth quarter. We were able to track down some offensive rebounds because they just didn't have the legs to get after it. So, That's our MO. Really, I've got 15 kids who can play, and what's the best way to use those kids, and what's the best way to get everyone involved and get them minutes, and how can we play to our strengths? We're the smallest school in Division I now, aside from Trinity and BG, and we don't have the size that Pinkerton has or some of the other schools. So how can we best use our strengths? And after doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of coaches from all over the place, this is kind of what we settled into. And we did it all summer long. We've done it all preseason with the 5 in, 5 out. And did it last night. We switched it up at the end. We did some position subbing at the end and as it was needed. I think it worked out pretty well for us.
Jay McKenna, head coach of the Winnacunnet Warriors basketball team. Nice win at home to open the season against Pinkerton, 66-58. And Coach, you mentioned about the strengths, and when I was looking at your roster prior to the start of the season, I saw a lot of names that I remembered and saw play last year as you guys struggled. Especially those guards you have, Ryan Gelati, Richie Ruffin, who Dave mentioned earlier. You got Patrick Lamprey doing a good job for you, Sam Nollmeyer. I mean, these guys, the guards, really are the strength of your basketball team.
Yeah, they are, and they're very, they're very experienced at this point. Richie's been playing. He's been playing. Richie started for us as a freshman a little bit, so this is his third year as a varsity player, and Ryan Gelati, he started for us as a sophomore. He's a senior now, so that's his third year. And, Sammy Nollmeyer had a great sophomore season for us last year, so, Patrick is easily our best shooter. We've got a couple other kids, Matt Gannon, who was I think if there's a better defender in the state, I'd like to see it. Same with Spencer Kennedy, another great athlete who plays well in the system that we're doing. So we definitely are depth, and we've got one kid who's 6'6", and everyone else is about my size, which is 5'11", and just using this style and trying to push the pace as much as possible. I think it really puts those guys, Ryan and Richie and Sam and Patrick and all those guys, it just puts them in the best suits their skill set.
I was sitting there before the game, and I'm thinking, this is Jay trying to get back at me for whatever I've done to him in the past. It could be a number of different things, but I picked Sam Nollmeyer, second team All-State preseason, and the kid's not even starting, which, of course, doesn't even mean anything because within 3 minutes he's back in the game. But one thing I noticed last night is I would say the best 3 players on the floor for you, and in general prior, Richie Ruffin, Sam Nollmeyer, and Ben Garrow was fantastic last night. He was fantastic. He was great. None of those 3 guys, I don't believe, were ever on the floor at the same time together. I think Ben Garrow was with Nollmeyer, but I think Ruffin was in a different group. So my question is, you had your 5, you had your second 5. How set are you with that? I mean, it's the first game of the year, but I know you played a ton during the summer. Are you going to keep mixing up those starting 5 and the second 5? Or are you trying to get the same kind of units, every day?
No, we every day in practice is something different, and we want them to get as comfortable as they can playing with everyone, and so that's the way it looked last night. We done it the night before in practice. It looked good. So that's what we did last night. And as far as starting, we told the kids it doesn't matter. The next we'll probably have 5 new starters on Tuesday night against South. And then we mixed up a little bit at the end. And I think every time you see us play, you'll see different lineups. There's a couple of kids who work well together. We'll try to keep those kids if we can in the same groups, but we want to be as flexible with them as possible. You don't know with foul trouble or sickness or injury, how quickly you're going to have to make changes. So that's been kind of our idea, is to try to keep it as fluid and as flexible as possible.
Yeah, and how big is it for you as a coach, and you got a veteran, coaching staff with you, to have a kid like Richie Ruffin, who's a name, people know who he is, handle being on the bench for the last 5 minutes as well as he did, and just, and not sit. I've seen kids sit. I've seen kids from Winnacunnet in the past sit there and pout. I mean, I've seen kids from every. He didn't. He handled it. His team won the game, and he got it. I mean, how important is that on opening night for a player, of his stature?
Oh, I think it's huge, and I think it speaks, immensely to his character. I mean, he is an unbelievable kid, and he understands the big picture, so to speak. He sees it, and I said to him at the end with about 2 minutes to go, I mentioned it to you at the end of the game. I said 99.9% of the time, you're my guy in here. But that group that we had in at the end was clicking, and I couldn't see pulling any of those guys out at that time because they were hot. They were playing well together. The ball was finally going in the basket, so let's see what we could get. And he said, he absolutely no problem, coach, no problem, and he's just as happy as anybody in that locker room after, because he's been the kid. He's been one of those guys along with Ryan and, with Sammy and Ben and some of these kids who have been playing varsity for a few years. They've been on the other end of that game where we've lost that game, and they understand how disappointing that is. So to come out of there with a win, I don't think anyone in our locker room last night was upset with anything. I mean, those kids were thrilled, absolutely thrilled to come away with a win. And I think as far as Richie, I think it just speaks to his character and what a great kid he is.
Jay McKenna from Winnicott, his team, they got a trip. I don't know if you guys are going to spend the night, but you guys are playing 2 games in Nashua next week. You got South on Tuesday, as you mentioned. Then Thursday, you're going to be at Nashua North. I'm going to come check you guys out at my old school, the Belanger Gym at what used to be Nashua High School. Now it's Nashua South. So I look forward to seeing you out there, Coach. And we hope that you'll help spread the word about the radio show, talking about New Hampshire high school hoops out there in Winnicott country. 96.7 The Wave, WQSO. Thanks so much for joining us, Coach, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, Jay McKenna, his team victorious last night, 66-58 over Pinkerton. Take a break, come back. I want to talk about some of the size that Pinkerton has. When we come back, Dave, you were at the game. You wrote the story. It's on nhsportspage.com. We'll talk a little bit about it from the Pinkerton angle when we come back, and I'll tell you my Pete Rosinski, little Rosinski, not so little Rosinski story from last March at UNH. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Were you there on Saturday night at the Winger Show at Wally's Pub in Hampton?
Row 1.
You were right up there.
I got to show Adam after next break. I got to show him. I got Kip Winger in video. I got pictures. Anything you want to see.
Adam Furious, our producer. You know how to get this guy fired up for the radio show. Just play the hair metal.
Yeah. What can I say?
Are you a fan of the hair metal? Because I see you more of a thrash guy.
Be careful what you say here.
Nah, you know what? No, I'm not really. Like 80s metal, like some thrash metal, okay. I mean, if you can classify like early Pantera as thrash metal, but like honestly, I love the industrial stuff. Like I love the stuff that is mixed with electronics that just sounds like dark and demented and dirty, like Typo Negative and stuff like that.
That's what John Kessie
Stuff I've never heard of.
Stuff that probably
my dad loves that. Yeah.
Everybody listening to the station right now is like, who the type of what? Why are they talking about blood on a high school sports show
Thanksgiving dinner with David Francis Haley. Yeah, he played a lot of Typo Negative right at the table. It's beautiful.
Oh man, it's just you gotta love 11 minutes of Black Number One. It's a great song to sit there and have the family gather around and carve a turkey to. It's wonderful.
Well, I think the audience on this show, you've got high school kids who are I would assume into like the dance type of stuff, the pop, the hip hop, and the coaches are probably into the maybe classic rock. A guy like Jay McKenna might be a hair band guy.
He looks like a Dave Matthews
He's
guy.
about our Dave Matthews, me and you.
Here's the thing, and I can tell this right now, just because I'm a little bit on the younger side than the two of you, not by much, but the fact that I've had enough interaction with high school kids, I can tell you that there are kids right now that think like Pink Floyd is the greatest thing that's ever happened. There are the kids out there.
You think so?
That I'm telling you this, and this is not just speculation. I can tell you this for actual fact. All right, like Pink Floyd, kids love it. For some reason, kids are still into Bob Marley. To see friend of mine who happens to be 18 years old, she's into stuff that was new when it came out when I was her age, actually younger, like the Typo Negatives and all this stuff. It's like, how do you know about like the Misfits? I mean, come on, really? I mean, this is all stuff that was, you think gets shuttled into a closet somewhere after it's hit its prime. No, comes right back around, and it slaps parents in the what, because it's like, oh wait, now my kids are listening to this stuff. Oh boy, now what do I gotta do with?
I'll tell you what. I mean, being at games and hearing the music that they're playing in warm-ups, seeing what they you get a lot of song lyrics on Twitter. These kids are talking about it, and it seems like all rap, all hip hop to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a little pregame report for the video on the website, and I'm like fighting this super high volume. I can't even hear myself.
The theme for warm-ups is too much bass. Oh my God! Just turn it to 7. It's all right. You don't have to. The bricks are coming out of the wall. But one of the questions I'm asking the kids now on the Players Lounge on the site when they join, we had a bunch of kids from Trinity join. My new question I added in there is, what's the last song you listened to in your headphones before the game? And so far, yeah, it's all hip hop.
What was it for you? Because back in the day, man, I'm talking.
I know what it was.
I graduated in 1988. All right, and what I was listening to was the Rocky IV soundtrack.
Yeah.
Eye of the Tiger. I think that's Rocky III, actually. Eye of the Tiger was my song.
On fire.
That was on that seat. It was actually a cassette.
That was Rocky IV.
I was listening to it in my Walkman, and Rat Wanted Man was one of the songs that really got me going. And Quiet Riot, whatever it was. Oh, Bang Your Head, Mental Health.
Cult of Personality by Living Colour.
Really?
Yeah, that was my song right before tip-off, when I had my old school Walkman.
Yeah.
Whatever. We don't need to let anyone know. Oh, yeah. And by the way, please don't anyone out there listening think that was me singing, by the way.
Yeah, that was Adam Furious, our fine producer. Well, I was going to talk about the height that Pinkerton has, but I want to quickly bounce around. We got about 2 minutes here for the top of the hour. Just some games and some scores. Merrimack beat Salem 57-48 last night at Merrimack. I talked to Tim Goodrich on the phone yesterday afternoon, and I was like, how's it been, being champions all this offseason, and you get to defend the title? He's like, yeah, now we're back to getting our butts kicked. And what do you know? They go out and they beat Salem, a team that many people think is going to be pretty good this year.
I have some, you know what I thought when I looked at that? I put the box score on the site this morning real early. And Salem didn't turn it around last year until Ben Slepian started scoring for them, because they're a defensive-oriented team, but Rob McLaughlin runs such good sets that he can get you free if you're a good shooter. And David Ruffin is that kid. The Ruffin kid is Andrew Ruffin. Sorry, his dad is David. Andrew Ruffin is that kid. He had 7 points last night. So I'm not putting it all on him, but I'm saying as the season goes along, that's something to watch. Another score that was interesting to me was Nashua South beating Keene. Dave Sontag, former Keene State and Sauhegan Stars, the new coach at Keene, 56-50. South won that game. A lot of people would look at that and say, wow, I'm surprised South didn't beat them by more than that. Don't forget, last year, Keene beat Spalding at Spalding in, I think, the second game of the year. And then, of course, Keene was
went the other way.
The Hindenburg
was great.
They were such a mess. They actually got me in USA Today and Barstool Sports. But anyway, early in the season, you're going to see some scores that may not look, when you look back on it a few months from now.
How about Memorial Londonderry? I mean, everybody knows Memorial has all the talent in the world, but can they keep it together as a team? Jack Quirk, let's face it, he's not the youngest coach in the world, and he's dealing with these young, talented kids that I don't want to question the discipline that these kids have, but that's the big question mark. Can they keep it together? And they had an impressive win at Londonderry. A lot of people talking good things about Londonderry this year. One of my favorite players in all of New Hampshire high school basketball, Tong Acott, okay? The kid, he's like Adam Furious's size, but he can shoot the three. He's very, very quick with the basketball, and Adam Furious is going, I would guess that he's getting close to 3 bills, if not over that. Tong Acott has a similar body style, but the kid can really play. He had 22 points in the game last night, and Adam can't even defend himself because we're out of time. We got Matalosa coming up on the other side at about 8:30 or so.
The size of the school, their fancy uniforms, and remember what got you. Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. You put your effort, concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be. I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
This is the New Hampshire High School Group Show.
This is the second coming. This is the call to arms. Your finest hour won't be wasted.
The New Hampshire High School Hoop Show is brought to you by the New Hampshire State Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement.
Right now, it's not about talent. It's about heart. It's about who can go out there and play the hardest. Who can go out there and play the smartest. Now, they've been here before. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go out there and we got to take it.
And now, here are your hosts, Pete Terrier.
I have a question, though. Those two foul shots were under the plate. Did you miss them? Did you miss them? Not exactly a silly question, is it?
And Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com.
All season long, we played our game. Right now, you're playing theirs. When we step on the floor, every second that clock is ticking, we are pedal to the metal. We run the ball. We pressure the ball. And most importantly, we control the tempo of the game.
This is hour number 2 of the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show each and every Saturday morning on these two fine stations, WGIR AM 610 around Manchester, Nashville, Concord area. Also, Seacoast signal for you, 96.7 The Wave. My name is Pete Terrier, along with my co-host Dave Haley of NHSportsPage.com, giving you all the scores from around the state. Well, maybe not all the scores. We'd have to add another couple hours to the show if we gave all the scores, because I know you'd really like to wax poetic about Lisbon, Littleton,
Colebrook profile,
and I want you to work these games in somehow creatively throughout the scoreboard, but we certainly can't give you all the scores. I'll tell you a good place you can go find out scores and box scores.
Where can I do that? Who would have all the box scores from around the state and game stories and video? It doesn't exist.
NHSportsPage.com.
Really?
Yes. You can find that stuff there. Except you can't find the box score to the game that I went at because I'm an idiot and I didn't fill the box score in last night. So
awkward pause.
My bad.
Yeah, we'll talk about that off air.
We got Matt Alosa, head coach of the Pembroke Spartans, coming up about 8:35 this morning. Talk to him about his opening night game last night against the Pelham Pythons. A couple of P teams going at it in D2. Certainly want to get around the scoreboard with Dave Haley, but obviously the situation in Connecticut affecting a lot of people in ways that you never thought you could be affected. These young kids, and we cover kids on this show. These are even younger kids that were affected last night in families in Connecticut. And I know both of us, we talked about it earlier in the first hour of the show, what our personal effects were when we found out the news. And as parents of young kids around the ages that these kids that were killed tragically yesterday, it just really hits close to home. Really interesting to talk to Jay McKenna from Winnicott, who was a teacher in an elementary school in Hampton.
Yeah.
And talking about how they kind of found out about it, and they didn't really know much as the day went on. They found out about it. They were told about it. They were affected by it. Jay told us how he had 2 young daughters, and they were, I think, what do you say, 6 and 9 years old.
Yeah.
So it really hit home for him, and it was nice to hear that they do actually kind of prepare. You can't really prepare for these things, but he said they just did a drill last week with a situation, how to handle these type of situations. You would have never known that this was going to happen, but you can prepare, you can, do as much training as possible, but when something like this really happens, you really can't do much about it.
No, I think the thing that sticks with, a lot of things stick with me on this, as we talked about earlier, but about the first, the little girl saying that they told them to get in line when they got out of school and they close their eyes and don't look, and they said the first responders who went into that room where the deceased are absolutely gonna need a tremendous amount of help and will never ever be the same person as they were walking in that room. So yeah, I mean, there was on Twitter for the website, and I get nervous when I see Twitter because you don't know where people are going to go, and a lot of people just expressing their grief and prayers, which is as they should. I retweeted one because I didn't know quite, it's with the but Jerry Thornton from Barstool Sports, who I love, he's fantastic. But his tweet that I retweeted was, there's nothing in the world as precious as kids heading off to a day of school. That anyone would harm them is incomprehensible. And I think that really, you just can't wrap your hands around it. It just doesn't. It's incomprehensible is the right word.
It's just awful, and a lot of hype about the Hobbit movie that's just came out, and I can't wait to go see it personally. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I've watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy about 1 million times, and I know it by heart. And something that was said in Lord of the Rings Two Towers, so the second film, King Theoden, who is the king of Rohan, he is basically waiting for this huge army to come and destroy the 300 people that are left in his country, in his kingdom. And they're hiding out at their stronghold, Helm's Deep. And he's basically staring and watching this army get closer and closer, and he knows that they're all going to die. And he says to Aragorn, and one of the Viggo Mortensen in the film, and he says, "What can men do against such reckless hate?" And this guy that did this, and these people that do these type of things, that's reckless hate. And Theoden's right. What can you do against it? You can't do anything. You just can't. Because stuff like that's going to happen. People have their mindset, and all you can do is kind of deal with it after the effect. You can try and prepare for it. You can try and prevent it, but you really can't, because reckless hate is reckless hate, and that's what we saw yesterday. So, I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that, that's what I thought of King Theoden, kind of exasperated. And Aragorn said to him, well, ride out and meet them. Well, unfortunately, you couldn't ride out and meet this guy because you didn't know he was coming.
I had no idea you were a Lord of the Rings geek.
Huge Lord of the Rings fan.
You couldn't tell by looking at him he wasn't a Lord of the Rings fan? Come on.
All right, enough of that.
I'm seeing it now.
Let's try and lighten the mood a little bit. A lot of games. I mean, we talked about this earlier, too. We had heavy hearts going into it. We went to basketball games last night.
Moment of silences around the stage.
There was moment of silences.
As it should be.
When the games tipped off, we had a good hour and a half, 2 hours of escape.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it during the games while they were going on. So let's hit the Friday night scoreboard right now, brought to you by New Hampshire Liquor Commission's Division of Enforcement and their Buyers Beware program, reminding all adults it is against the law to provide alcohol to minors. Here with the scoreboard from last night, Dave Haley.
We'll start in Division I, Trinity. With an 86-41 win over Concord. Again, I'm surprised, maybe you're not, a 45-point margin on the road. That's an impressive win for Dave Keefe's team. Dover, Seacoast rivalry, Dover over Exeter, 63-53. Dover was a house on fire in the first quarter and then held off Exeter, who played better as the game went on over there. In Division I, also moving on, Nashua South with a 56-50 win over Keene. Nashua South, I had them preseason number 4. I think pretty high in those guys this season. And they are 1-0 now. Manchester Memorial with a 66-58 win over Londonderry. I'm surprised that Memorial got that many points. Most of these Londonderry games, especially at home, are in the 40s. But Manchester Memorial, very talented team, 66-48. 66-58. Manchester Central, the game you and the great John Kesty covered last night for us on NHSportsPage.com. 58-42 over Alvern. We'll get more into that game later. The defending champs, Merrimack, 57-48 over Salem. That's a good win for Tim Goodrich's team on opening night. Bishop Girton hands Bedford a loss in their initial Division I game, 89-74. And the last two games in the division, Spalding, 63-43. A lot of people, including myself, very high on Spalding this year. There with a 20-point win on the road last night over Timberlane. And the game I was at last night, Winnicott 66, Pinkerton 58. Nice win for Jay McKenna's team. In Division II, actually, we're going to skip around a little bit. Division III, big game in Division III, Campbell with a 65-57 win over Prospect Mountain. Campbell's undefeated. Colebrook, 55-36 over Profile. Buddy Trask team with a W there, and I got in a Colebrook score. Conant, 79-43 over Kearsarge. And Conant, like I said, maybe one of the top 3 teams in Division II if they had moved up. Goffstown, 62-60 over Wyndham. They traded baskets in the last 17 seconds, but Goffstown pulled out a win there. Nice win there for Justin Gorham's team. Somersworth, 58-28 over Interlakes. I'm going to go see Somersworth on Friday night play against Campbell, 2 undefeated teams. That should be a good one. Merrimack Valley, 62-59 over Kennett with a home win there. Plymouth with a nice win, 55-26 over Kingswood in their opener. Portsmouth, the defending champs, Jim Mulvey, who guaranteed me they'd win 5 games. Well, they're going to win 4 more the rest of the season because they're 1-0. 59-54 over Oyster River. Oyster River's going to be a pretty good team there. Stuart Mitchell does a nice job. Littleton got a nice win up north, 58-53 over Lisbon. Those might be the 2 best teams in the North Country, and Trevor Howard's team, who's getting started back from injury in a few weeks, is now 4-0 on the season. And the last 2 scores are big ones. Hollis Brookline, 53-43 over Souhegan. I had preseason Souhegan 2 and Hollis Brookline 4. So big win for Hollis Brookline. They got a great backcourt. And Pembroke, we're going to be talking to Coach Alosa pretty soon, 66 47 over Pelham. Pelham's a very good team as well. But Patrick Welch, 21 points in the first half in that game. He ended that game with 33, and I will be shocked if he is not the leading scorer in the state at the end of the season.
Yeah, and we'll talk with Coach Alosa about 15 minutes from now. He'll join us a little bit after the bottom of the hour, 8:30. Impressive win by the Spartans. They've had a lot of hype over the last few years.
Yeah.
We'll ask him if this is the year that they actually break through and are able to win the championship. It's been a real tough battle in Division 2 over the last 3-4 years. You had the Milford dominating team, the back-to-back championships, and then, of course, Portsmouth last year, I think, was very, very good, very, very dominating last year, especially down the stretch. We will take a timeout, come back, and we'll go around the state a little bit, talk about some of these games. I want to talk about that BG Bedford game last night. Bedford in Division 1. They moved up in football from Division 3 to Division 2. Did quite nicely, thank you. Made it to the championship game. They make the move upward in basketball from D2 to D1. They were a title game runner-up last year in basketball, losing to Portsmouth. Now they're up playing in Division 1. They entertained BG last night in a very, very raucous atmosphere at Bedford High School. We'll talk a little bit about that game when we return. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, WGIR, AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Back here on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show each and every Saturday morning between 7 and 9 a.m. on WGIR AM 610 around Manchester. Also got the Seacoast signal for you in Dave Haley Country, 96.7 The Wave, WQSO. Dave, you get a lot of feedback on the radio show and how well it's received over on the Seacoast. It's kind of nice to have that FM signal and a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people liking your work. Do they ever compliment me?
Nope.
It's just you? It's just all about you?
Adam's jumping in. I don't think people know if it's me talking to him. Everyone loves you, Pete. You're a man of the people. I heard talking about Newmarket and Epping more and Somersworth.
Do they really?
Greg,
you really get that type of stuff? People say, hey,
yeah.
We love the show, but you know what? We're on the Seacoast, too. Yes. And you guys could talk about us.
Yes. I said, Pete doesn't understand that there's a Division 3 and a Division 4. It's like a kid who can't count past 14. He doesn't know what 15 and 16 is. But I'm working on it,
All right, tell you what.
Where is this Colebrook you speak of?
I will not go to Colebrook for a game. All right.
Oh, neither would I. It's 3 hours away.
I won't go to Colebrook. I will go to a Division 3 game this year. And I have seen Campbell play, and I have seen Conan play over the years.
John and I are going to go together to Conan. We're definitely.
I think that's a great idea.
We're a video game.
I want to see Devin Springfield. I want to hear what the hype is all about. I saw him a couple of years ago.
And Rob O'Brien and Jake Carlson and Eli Hodgson. Those guys are loaded.
Rob O'Brien now following me on Twitter. I picked up a bunch of Twitter followers over the last few days. And Rob O'Brien from Conan is one of them.
There you go. Kid can play.
Now, I promise you, I will go to a game. I want to see Campbell play again this year. I wonder if they're playing in that Chick-fil-A tournament, the National Holiday Basketball
year, right?
Tournament. They usually do.
Yeah.
So I want to go see that, and I will. How Newmarket.
How good is that going to be now? The Hollis, Brookline, Souhegan, Nashua South, Campbell. Those are 4 very, very good teams.
Are they all playing in that? I could probably look it up. Someplace. I know that there's some new blood in the Queen City tournament, the holiday tournament coming up.
And
Goffstown, Bedford's going to play in that.
Yeah,
Bedford, we talked about this before the break. They had their introduction to Division I last night against Bishop Girton at Bedford High School. Mike Fitzpatrick making his debut as the coach of the Bulldogs, and they got beat 89-74. Goffstown was a team that was scoring a lot of points last year. Souhegan was scoring a lot of points, but Bedford gives up 89. They score 74 and they lose by 15. You don't see that happen very often.
No, I don't think Fitzy's happy about giving up 89.
No.
But yeah, their first game out. That's a team that a lot of young kids, Taylor Grundy and Sam Thomas are 2 guys who have played a lot of summer ball and the BST program. Mike Fitzpatrick, for my money, is one of the top. I mean, he's in the conversation for top 5-6 coaches in the state. So I think they'll be playing much better as the season goes on. Remember, he's a new coach. He wasn't with them this summer. So remember we talked to James Caparell at the Turkey Bowl. He hadn't even met him yet. So I mean, this was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, this was the couple days before practice started.
Yeah, so he's only had 2 weeks with these guys. So it takes some time, and I'm sure that they're going to be vastly improved by the time they get to the end of the season. And I think they'll make the tournament, and they could be a very difficult team, somebody in round one.
And Caparell was telling us about Taylor Grandy, who is 5'6". But he's very, very fast, very, very athletic. He talked about how he made a big jump. He's a junior. One of the guards. They got two guards that, to me, look very similar. Sean Purcell, I don't know how you pronounce his name, and Taylor Grandy. They both look like the same kid. One of them's a senior, Purcell is a little bit bigger. He's listed at 5'10". Grandy listed at 5'6". But I like those two kids as guards. A kid that had a huge game in one of the games that I was covering last year, Cam Maservi, had a big game last night. He's a junior, scored 26 points in the game. I'm looking for the box score to see what our boy Caparell did last night. He's a much better football player than he is basketball.
Yeah,
he's pretty good at basketball.
Yeah.
But he's not a real good shooter. Does start for that team.
He's going on a visit today, by the way.
Scored 13 points. Where's he headed?
You called me on it. He's going to New York. He's got it's a 6-hour drive. St. Louis. No, I don't know if it's St. Louis. He's going to a visit out in New York obviously for football today.
He said that he was getting some interest from UNH. I mean, he seemed to would potentially fit that UNH mold. I mean, he's a drop back passer.
He's tremendous.
I think Bedford's going to be okay in Division I. I don't think that they're going to be championship caliber or even top 8, but I don't know. I haven't seen him play. Like you said, Fitzpatrick is a very, very good coach, and I'm sure he'll do a good job there. And they got great facilities. Have you been to Bedford in the gym?
I haven't been there yet.
It's really nice.
I've seen him play in the row, but yeah.
Really nice.
I went to Conda last night. We were saying before we went on the air, for my money, one of my favorite places to cover.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it.
It's beautiful.
We didn't get
way better than the football field. I mean, the football field is not in great shape, and the basketball court is awesome.
So, because we never got to it, I think we started talking about Lord of the Rings. But Pinkerton is unbelievable. They're like 6'7", 6'6". I understand what Jay is saying, whereas kids were like, holy. I mean, these guys their guards are 6'2", 6'3". I mean, they have I want to say they have 10 kids over 6'2" on their roster. And one thing that was interesting last night, you can tell your Rosninsky story. Luke Rosninsky's a freshman. Rosinski. He blew me off after the game, so I'm going to keep calling him Rosninsky today until he calls me back. But I didn't get a post-game interview with him. I'm bitter, and I have a microphone in front of me. So anyway,
you know that's getting back to him.
Oh, that's fine.
And he's going to probably hold it against me.
What's he going to do, blow me off the next game? So anyway, Rosaninsky, after the game, he had his son taking the ball out of bounds against a press as a freshman, and his son played very well. And they do a nice job. He does a nice job coaching those guys. But I thought it was interesting about a freshman taking the ball out of bounds against full court pressure on the road against a top 5 preseason team. He had 4 5-second violations, and Peter at one point told him, after you get a 5-second violation, he said, throw it at their feet. As a coach, you say, if you get into that 5-second violation in your head, throw it at their feet. It goes out of bounds. You get a fresh 5 seconds. Well, he threw it at a kid's foot from Winnicott. He missed, and it dribbled right to a Winnicott kid who laid the ball in. So anyway, you got a freshman taking the ball out of bounds. I'm not saying he did a bad job, but he had a tough time getting in. I just thought it was interesting. There's nobody else who can get the ball in bounds?
Well,
freshman?
Here's what I saw in the Central game last night. Similar situation. Dawson Dixon, who was a junior but seasoned. He's been playing since he was a freshman when he was at Trinity. Last year was a starting point guard for that Central team that went into the championship game. A couple of situations. He was in trouble on the baseline trying to get the ball in bounds. Off the knee of Tyler Livingston twice, and it worked both times, and then he was able to get the ball in bounds.
You got to be able to hit the knee.
Yeah, he hit him in the knee. Now, Tyler Livingston's 6'5", so he has a big target area.
Right.
I don't know, Winnicott's a smaller team, but it just goes to show you that different players perform differently, and I bet you a couple of years from now, Luke Rosinski, when he's a junior, a couple of years from now, he'll be able to handle that, and maybe he'll be even taller. He's 6'6" now.
He's going to be an excellent player. I wrote about it in the column, and foul shooting killed Pinkerton last night. And when I was walking out, Kevin Samprini and Steve Hamill, the ref, they're Seacoast guys, so I know him. And Kevin Samprini is a fantastic official. And he said to me, we were talking, he goes, you covered the game. He goes, you're the guy. He goes, what happened? How did Pinkerton lose? And I said, foul shooting? He said, exactly. He said, he goes, couldn't they have won? He said, this was his quote, he said, if they shot 30% from the line last night, and I don't know what they did, He goes, if they shot 30%, they would have won. I mean, I'm telling you,
if they shot 30%, they would have won.
Yeah, they probably. I mean, I'm telling you, they could not hit. But they're a big team. That kid Cam Welsh, he's a heck of a shooter. He's
lefty
fine.
shooter.
He's
he can
very
shoot
good.
The long ball.
He's excellent. He played very well last night. And Luke Testa, the point guard, very good player. But they got a lot of big guys, and big guys notoriously can't shoot foul shots. See Howard Dwight. So that's a problem that might not be going away. And one thing I noticed was in pregame warmups, the Pinkerton team was taking layups, and Justin Scott, their center, was just shooting foul shots the entire time. And I said, this kid must not be a good foul shooter, and he was not. So I'm sure they're working on it, but that's something to watch this season, because I'm telling you can't hit foul shots, you're going to lose a lot of three-point games.
I'll just give you the quick Rosinski story. Last year, I'm walking through Lundholm Gym, the back area, where they have all the pictures of the athletic teams and stuff. And I see Pete Rosinski, and I say, "Hey, Coach, how's it going?" It's just hard to imagine that just a couple of years ago, you guys won the championship. That great Zach Matthew team in that awesome game against Winnicott in double overtime. And I said, how are you guys looking for next year? And he looks up at the kid that was next to him, this big, tall, skinny kid. And he says, well, we're going to be pretty good over the next couple of years. This is my son, Luke, who was going to be a freshman. Who was an 8th grader at the time last year. And this kid is tall.
Yeah.
And Pete Rosinski's a tall, big dude. So, they got a good future ahead of them. Not like a great story, but I just, when I saw it, and I was like, wow.
I just laugh when you say they got a great future. They have 3,000 kids in that high school.
Yeah,
play.
true.
They do, and this goes back to the Bo Cassidy teams and with Colby Virch. They look like a college team in warm-ups, always, every year.
Yeah. Scott King, and Zach Matthew was on that team.
Again,
Ben Prue.
Bo Cassidy was a 6'2" shooting, 6'3" shooting guard. I mean, those are, that's a big shooting guard for New Hampshire.
All right, we'll take a time out, come back. We got Matt Alosa, head coach of the Pembroke Spartans. I want to talk to him about his team's impressive victory last night in Pembroke against Pelham. Patrick Welch, you said it. He's going to be, he's taking his game to the next level, and he showed it last night, 33 points. We'll talk to Coach Alosa. Will Patrick Welch break Alosa's Pembroke scoring record? He's got a couple full seasons ahead of him to do it. That is if he doesn't go prep. We'll talk to Coach Alosa next on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Pete Terrier, Dave Haley from NHSportsPage.com on WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave. Well, every year, it seems like we're talking about Pembroke, the Spartans, being one of the top teams in Division II, and this year certainly no different. Joining us on the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show is the head coach of the Pembroke Spartans, Matt Alosa. Matt, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Congratulations on the win last night, 66-47 over Pelham. It must have been good just to get out there on the floor for real and play a real game against real competition.
It was quite a long 2-3 weeks here in the preseason. The kids, trying to get in shape and do those kind of things to get ready to play the regular season, and they were happy to get out on the court and get a game under their belt.
Hey Matt, when we talked on the phone last week, and you mentioned to me, you said Patrick Welch and Kafani Williams were the two kids, and you said, they both have just made, I can't remember, you said made the leap, or they've just gone to another level. I think that's what you said in ability, and both of them had big nights last night. I think Kafani Williams had something like 15 points and 14 rebounds, and obviously Patrick Welch was phenomenal, 21 in the first half, 33 overall. Just kind of expand on what we were talking about the level of play and how they both picked up their games.
Yeah, these kids put a lot of work into the game in the offseason. They both play for the Granite State Raiders, AAU, and have been on the AAU circuit for a couple of years now, and they really have made improvements just becoming young men growing up. It seems like people like Rainey Marr and Matt Persons and Pat Welch have been around for a while, and Pembroke has been in the talks for winning the state championship over the past couple of years. But these kids were still freshmen. Pat's been a freshman, sophomore. He's a junior now. And Rainier, of course, is a senior now, and I just think they've become older. They've become more like young men, and I just think they're hungry for it. I don't think they like getting beat in the quarterfinals last year and the year before, and I think they just want to they want to come out and make a statement, and I think they might be ready for that.
I think Rainey Marr is a guy that, he gets credit, but I don't think he gets as much credit as he deserves. I mean, when you look at the way your career was, and you were a point guard and leading that team, and this kid's been leading the team, like you said, since he was a freshman. He helps everybody around him get better. When you really need a basket, he's a guy that is not afraid to take the ball to the hole, although he's not the tallest kid in the world. Can you just talk about what he's meant to the program over the last 4 years?
Yeah, undeniably, Rainey has ran my team for the past 4 years. He went to the finals his freshman year and played much like a veteran when he was 14 years old, and he really is steady at running the ship. We have a lot of weapons on our teams offensively, and we're much improved defensively this year, which is, I think, the reason why we're much improved as a team. And Rainey just is the steady flow that keeps the team going in the right direction.
I was talking to the Conant coach, Eric Saucier, and he was saying their team was upset earlier than expected by Prospect Mountain, and he was saying to me, these kids, we mentioned Prospect Mountain and that game all summer long when we were working. When they were doing sprints, when they were doing individual drills, he's like, I wasn't afraid to bring that game up a lot. Were you like that with the kids about the Cole Brown game, or is it an unspoken thing?
I wasn't like that with the kids. We have different focuses throughout the year. We mentioned Cole Brown a couple times, and we tend to focus on ourselves. We weren't really focused on Cole Brown. Personally, I don't think Cole Brown was a better team than we were. I think they beat us on a night because they were more like men than we were, and when it comes down to playoff basketball, you can get beat on a certain night when a team has a really, really good performance, and just, they catch you on a night, and it can happen sometimes. And I didn't bring that up as the focus, but I can really sense it in our kids that they just want to really, really get grinded out.
We're talking with Matt Alosa, head coach of the Pembroke Spartans team that beat Pelham last night 66-47. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show. Hear us each and every Saturday morning live on the radio between 7 and 9 a.m. WGIR AM 610 in and around Pembroke, Concord, Manchester. Also got a Seacoast signal for you. A lot of those teams you face out there in D2, Portsmouth for one, and Oyster River, St. Thomas, 96.7 The Wave. I'm sure they're listening closely to what you have to say because they're going to have to face you later on this year. I want to get back into Pat Welch, and this kid had 33 points last night. As of last year, at the end of last year, he was on pace, I think, or right in that neighborhood to, maybe contend for your all-time scoring mark at Pembroke Academy, which was over 2,500 points. I don't know the exact number. Maybe you do. Is that true? Is he in that neighborhood? Does he have a chance of breaking your record?
I think Pat could break it. I think he would need 150 points to get 1,000 at the end of last year. So 33 last night. I think fourth, fifth game, sixth game of the season. I know I had my 1,000th point on my second game as a junior. So he's in the ballpark. Depending on how deep we go into the tournament the next few years, I think he'll have to average over the next 2 years around 34, 35 points a game if he wanted to catch me. I'm the all-time 4-year scorer in the whole state, also at Pembroke, at 25, 75. So do a little math depending on how we divide it out. I think he needs to have around 34, 35 points a game. But Pat Welch, I think undeniably he's one of the best guards in the state this year. He is a different player this year than he was last year, which is a little bit scary when you think about it. But, again, he's grown up a little bit through the year, and I think he's going to be a different look for teams this year than he has been in the past, too. Great player to have in the program.
Yeah, you mentioned him being more drawing contact now and going to the hoop. I want to ask you a question. Back when you were playing, and you and I are about the same age, but you were getting recruited nationally. And I remember the AAU scene back then where for some years it was, you went with, it was a cattle call, and you went with 200 kids, and they broke it down to 30, and then they broke it down to 18, finally got you 12. And now you're so involved with these kids in these AAU programs, your father as well, during the off season. I wanted to hear your perspective, and you were obviously nationally recruited in high school, the difference between AAU then, maybe the amount of tournaments, the level of play, whatnot, towards how it is now with these kids that you're coaching.
Well, I think it's the level of the watered-down talent, especially for our state. We have a lot of AAU programs where when I played, we only had 1 or 2 AAU programs where you had all the talent from the state played on 1 or 2 teams. So when you went to the national tournament, you could compete at a very, very high level. I know I finished 6th in the nation one year. We finished 9th in the nation one year. This is coming with hundreds of teams, probably 150, 200 teams at the national level. Not to say that we can't have teams do that now, but we start our AAU program with kids that are 9, 10 years old who come out for our Granite State Raider program, and we try to work. For example, Pat Welch started when he was 8 or 9 years old, and he's been working in the program up to now in the high school. And I mean, specifically for our program, we've had 45, 46 college scholarship players that have came through our program. But to answer your question, I just think there's so many more players that are aware of the AAU program and play and try to play at that level. They have Division I AAU, Division II AAU. So when you go to Disneyland or Florida for the tournament or any tournament throughout the country, you might see anywhere from 60 to 300 teams, where it's just a lot for college coaches to look through those kids. It's really a lot of games to have to see to judge the talent.
Coach Aloso, I'm not going to be able to see you guys in person probably until after the new year when you come to Goffstown on, I think it's a Thursday, maybe a Friday night. It's a Friday night, January 4th, but you got a big game next week. I'm hoping for radio purposes only you'll look past that John Stark game coming up on Tuesday and focus on that game on Friday night at Portsmouth. Portsmouth is your big rival. I know the Merrimack Valley rivalry is strong, but really Portsmouth and Pembroke, that's been a game of the year type of game over the past few years. I was hoping you could maybe talk about that one a little bit with us.
Yeah, I know Coach Mulvey over in Portsmouth has to reload after having a tremendous season last year. To be honest, I thought we might have been the only team that could have beat him if we got to the finals. Of course, we got upset last year in the quarterfinals. I thought we had a chance, but with the way that they were playing on their tournament run, I'm not even sure if we could have beat them. But he's a great coach. I know they have a really good JV program and underclassmen. So, like he said, I think he said he might only win 5 games this year, but they beat Oyster River last night, and we both know that that's not going to happen. So we're going to prepare. I'll get what information I can on Portsmouth, what they're doing this year, and go in and try to win a game.
Oh, quickly, one more for you. One of your players transferred out and is now playing for Trinity. Brad Rhodes had a pretty good game as Trinity beat up on Concord last night. What can you say about that kid? I know he's had a tough time. His mother, was killed in that accident a couple of years ago. But what can you say about Brad Rhodes and him playing well for Trinity last night?
Yeah, that's great for Brad. Brad's a great kid. He's still around the gym. He's friends with all the kids on the Pembroke team. He lives in the Pembroke area, so we see him often, and I'm happy for him at Trinity. I know he's a football player, and some other things are going on in his life, and he went to Trinity. We love to have him at Pembroke, and I'm glad he's doing well. He's doing well at Trinity. I wish him all the best.
All right, Coach. Well, do me a favor. Wish your assistant Dave Siegel the best for me. Say hi to him. He's a good guy, and we really appreciate the time, and can't wait to see the team play in a couple of weeks at Goffstown.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, Matt Aloso from Pembroke. He knows the numbers. I mean, 2,575 points. He's got
you
the
were shaking your head.
That's unbelievable. I mean, in high school, to average 35 points a game in 32-minute game.
I was a senior when Matt was a junior, and it's funny that he talked about 1 or 2. I tried out for the state New Hampshire team and made it, and then they had their own team with Scott Drapo and Dave Burrows, and there were 2. There were only 2. It was my team and his team. His team obviously better because they had Aloso and Drapo. But I used to, my buddies, we'd get out of practice, and if they played Laconia, locally, we'd go see Matt play. You just appreciate greatness, and he's tremendous. And I think I'm really happy that a guy like Matt Aloso is still in the area coaching and still a huge presence and so forth. He's a great guy to talk to, and he's in my lifetime behind Matt Bonner. He's the biggest name in this state, and And so it's great to see him coaching. I think, my opinion, from a guy who's seen hundreds of high school games, he's a college level coach.
I was going to say that. Why?
He's college level. Well,
I know there was interest when in the Plymouth job when that opened up a couple years ago.
He's better than a lot of D3 coaches.
Man, I don't understand why someone hasn't plucked him yet.
And how about a guy like Matt? You've seen him. He's polished. He's articulate. He's
Rick Pitino without the slick hair.
Yeah, you tell me that guy. You tell me that guy couldn't recruit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think and he's a guy who can still. He plays in Seacoast tournaments at the Connie Bean that I play in. He's still putting up 36 points a game, and he's 40 years old.
He's in great shape.
So, yeah, I think you'll see Matt. But I think Matt wants to lead his alma mater to a championship, but it's a tremendous program. I didn't realize Patrick Welch had been in that program since he was 8 years old. You can see it. The kid has been taught the correct way to play basketball.
All right, we'll get to a timeout, come back, and we will wrap up the program on this day, the first full season, full slate of high school basketball last night around the state of New Hampshire. We'll kind of go around the state and make some comments. We'll look ahead towards next week, as there's really only one more week before we get to the holiday breaks and then the holiday tournaments and things like that. Season pretty much gets hot and heavy after the holidays, but I love the holiday tournaments. I want to look at some good games coming up for next week, and we'll just kind of go around the state a little bit. It is the New Hampshire High School Hoop Show, WGIR AM 610 and 96.7 The Wave.
That we have left, we want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Taking it back to Dave Haley, Guilford High School, class of what, 91?
90.
Class of 90.
1990.
Getting set. What's the nickname for your team? Eagles or something?
Guilford Golden Eagles.
The Guilford. Hey,
excuse me, the 2-0 Guilford Golden Eagles.
They're 2-0.
Break up the Eagles.
And you were in the locker room cranking out that?
Yeah, cult personality. Well, Plymouth State. That's where we played. They used to play the Class M Division III semifinals. So we'd sit up at Plymouth State, the cool guy, waiting for the next game, cranking out Living Color. A little rat and roll too, Pete.
And the kids nowadays, psych up music could be the Nicki Minaj Pound the Alarm that Adam played going into that Matalosa interview.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what's pounding out. There's probably not too much rock and roll or anything. They're like, rock and roll? What the heck is that? Hey, I wanted to kind of look at some of the games coming up. Here you go. The big one next week for me that I'm going to, Goffstown at Souhegan. That game next Friday night should be an interesting game. Goffstown, big win last night. Souhegan, big loss against Hollis Brookline.
Yeah.
Brandon Len, tremendous player. Jake Kennedy, everybody talking about him, football scholarship to UNH. Pretty decent basketball player.
He had 8.
Big dude.
Len had 15.
He's got skills for a big guy.
Yeah.
I mentioned Tong Acott from Manchester Memorial, who has got like the body of, remember the big O, not Oscar Robertson, but Oliver Miller.
Yeah.
Real big dude, and he could shoot it, and he could shoot it from the outside. This kid Tong Acott's kind of like that too.
You love that guy.
I like him.
He's
a
your
lot.
Alec Yokes. That's my boy. Alec Yokes.
I like him a lot.
It's funny, you go to all these games and there's some kids you just pick out that you're like, I like this kid, like right off the bat. And I've had kids like that through the years that you just kind of, they're fun to watch. You kind of root for them as soon as you see them for the first time.
Look at another good game, I think, next week. It involves Souhegan again. Souhegan at Lebanon on Tuesday. I don't know much about Lebanon. I know you had them ranked pretty high. I know David Hampton's a good player for them. And they got the Alexander Morrow, I think it's his little brother.
Dominic
that plays for the team.
Here's the thing about Lebanon, and they open today against Hanover.
Today?
Yeah, today. That's a local. They always play on Saturday.
Oh, okay. So is it a boys, girls doubleheader?
It might be, but Matt Calls is their big guy who is dominant physically when he's of right mind and he's into it, and he's the key for that team. I said to Keith Matty last year, I said, "It's just me, or you're way better when that kid's good." And he goes, "No, you're 100% right." Here's the thing. Keith Matty thought Cowles may be suspended the first 2 games. So he may not be playing against Hanover. He may not be playing against Souhegan. So don't be shocked if Lebanon's 0-2 right off the bat, because without him, He's their big guy. Their center's Dylan Drew, 6'1". I mean, he's a football player, so he'll shove you around, but he's 6'1" is 6'1".
Yeah.
But yeah, David Hampton, without him in the lineup's going to have to. I mean, he's probably going to have to put up 25.
Looking at D1, a lot of games on Thursday next week. I don't know if there's any D1 teams playing on Friday night. They're playing their games Tuesday, Thursday next week. So much to the. Oh, there is a game on Friday. Memorial's playing at Timberlane on Friday night. I think that might be the only D1 game next Friday night. So normal Tuesday, Friday night looks like Tuesday, Thursday next week for most people. So it's an opportunity to see a lot of different games. I mean, I know you've been talking about that Summersworth Campbell game. That should be a pretty good one as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at that game, Campbell and Summersworth. Another really good game is Conant at Hopkinton, which should be an interesting game. Those are two of the top 5 teams, and I'll be interested to see how Plymouth does at John Stark. I think John Stark is they've got a very good point guard, Nick Lloyd, and they've got a good big man in Zach Gratton. So that will be an interesting game as well. Teams want to go into the Christmas break with a little bit of momentum, but yeah, absolutely. So, Goffstown, Sauhegan, suddenly that's kind of not important, but Sauhegan wants to win that game. They don't want to start off 1-2 start the season.
I already committed to going to at least one Division III game this year. If there was a Division IV game, no, certainly not. But I'm asking you this question here: if there was a Division IV game that's a must-see game that you would recommend that I go, I'm not saying I'm going to that game, but which game would it be? And then I'm not saying look at the schedule, but just off the top of your head.
You know I had the answer. It's 14 seconds ago. It's D4. I know it. Newmarket, Epping.
That's the D4 game?
Yeah, they played the other night. I think it was 55-52. It was a tremendous game. That's two teams that return 4 or 5 starters each. I don't think they like each other very much.
And it's not like I have to drive up Interstate 93 to go to that game
and
either.
It's lo and behold in our listening era, 96.7. So, yeah, that would be a game to see. Derryfield.
They're playing on January 25th.
Derryfield versus either of those teams, that would also be a very good game.
I might go to the Derryfield because, unfortunately, January 25th, Friday night, is the same night as the Clear Channel New Hampshire holiday party. It is an overnight affair.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I won't be able to go to that game.
Isn't it funny how it comes up when a big D4 game is being played?
Oh, trust me.
Isn't it just funny how the world
I'll
works?
be coming in on January 26th, Saturday morning on very, very, very little sleep.
By the way, another listen to Lebanon real quick. Lebanon opens up. They go with Pelham next Friday night too. So
that
they
should
got
be
3
an
tough
interesting
games
game.
to open the season.
That should be in it. It's so hard to choose, especially with basketball. There's so many games going on. It's so hard to choose the one you want to be at. So I'm going to try and be at as many games as possible. I want to thank our guests for coming on. Jay McKenna had some real good insight on being a teacher in an elementary school and being a parent and how he dealt with the whole situation in Connecticut. Also want to thank Matt Alosa for joining us as well from the Pembroke Spartans. For Dave Haley and John Kessie, our videographer, check out the website for the video cast of this. For our producer, Adam Furious, my name's Pete